When my daughter handed over my villa to her husband's family and said, "It's theirs now," I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at her, my only child, and felt something inside me quietly snap. That house wasn't just bricks and mortar. It held my memories, my struggles, and every ounce of love I had poured into giving her a secure future. And now she was tossing it away like some wedding favor. Let me take you back to where it began. After my husband died, I raised Emily on my own. I gave up a lot. Nights out, vacations, even career moves. Everything was about giving her the best. We lived in that villa for over 25 years. I bought it with my late husband before Emily was even born. It was supposed to be our forever home, our nest. I remodeled it through the years, adding a sunroom, expanding the kitchen, planting a garden where Emily used to chase butterflies. When Emily got married, I was nothing but supportive. Her husband, Troy, was polite, ambitious, and came from a family that always seemed a bit too eager to get their hands on something that wasn't theirs. His parents, especially his mother, would drop comments like, "This villa is too big for just you," or "You should consider downsizing, maybe give the young ones some space." I would smile politely, but the unease never left me. After their wedding, Emily and Troy moved in with me temporarily. That's what they said. Temporarily. I agreed because Emily had just left her job to start a family, and Troy was trying to build his real estate business. I told myself it was fine. Family supports family. Within months, I noticed small changes. My bedroom curtains were replaced with ones Troy's mother picked. My garden was redone by Troy's father, who claimed he had a vision for it. I didn't argue. I thought I was being generous. But generosity turned to invasion quickly. One day, I came home from grocery shopping and saw a moving truck in front of the house. Furniture I didn't recognize was being brought in. I asked what was going on. Emily said, "Oh, we're just updating a few things. Troy's family helped us get a good deal." She said us, like I didn't even exist in that sentence. Like this wasn't my house. Still I stayed silent. Until the morning everything changed. I walked into the kitchen and found Troy's parents seated at the table, eating breakfast like they owned the place. Troy's mom turned to me and said, "It feels good to finally be home." And blinked. "Excuse me." Emily walked in, barely meeting my eyes, and said, "Mom, we've decided. This house works better for Troy's family. You're getting older. Maybe it's time to move into a condo or something more manageable." I stood frozen. "You decided. This house is mine." Emily's voice turned cold. "I had the paperwork transferred. You signed those forms last month, remember? You said you trusted me. It's done now." And just like that, my daughter, my flesh and blood, ripped everything away from me. I had signed what I thought was a refinancing document to help her and Troy get a better rate on their loan. I didn't read the fine print. I trusted her. Justice must be restored. You won't believe what I did next. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. I didn't confront her again. I packed my things quietly and left the next morning. I moved into a small apartment near the city, barely big enough for my cat and me. But I didn't spend my days crying. I spent them planning. I started digging. Turns out, Troy's real estate business was hanging by a thread. He had lied about its success. He had taken loans in his parents' names. And worst of all, he had taken money from Emily's savings too. I knew what I had to do. I reached out to an old friend of my late husband, Mr. Halford, a retired lawyer who used to do our estate work. He was furious when I told him what happened. We went through the documents Emily tricked me into signing. It wasn't a clean transfer. There were gaps, missing notary signatures, inconsistent dates, even a forged witness. Mr. Halford filed a petition quietly. While the legal gears turned slowly in the background, I paid a visit to Troy's business associate posing as a potential investor. I asked questions. I dropped hints that Troy's finances weren't stable. It didn't take long for rumors to spread. The cracks began to show. First, a client backed out of a big deal. Then Troy's construction partner pulled funding. Soon, his business was being investigated for unethical practices. Emily called me one night crying, "Mom, everything's falling apart. We're about to lose everything." I didn't say much, just listened, let her feel the silence. When the court hearing finally came, Troy and Emily were smug, until the judge presented the document errors. When Troy opened his mouth to argue, his own mother was called to testify. Under pressure, she admitted she wasn't there when the papers were signed, blowing their entire scheme apart. The judge ruled the villa transfer invalid. The house was reinstated under my name. I didn't move back in. He sold it for twice its value. And guess who tried to bid for it? Troy's father. He declined. With the money, I bought a small but beautiful coastal home. It's peaceful, quiet, green. Months later, Emily showed up at my door. No makeup, no car, just tears. She asked if she could stay with me for a while. I looked at her and said gently, "This home works better for me. Maybe it's time for you to find something more manageable." I shut the door softly. Thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from, and don't forget to like, comment, and share the video. I sat in my small apartment with nothing but a folding chair, a laptop, and a box of old paperwork, and began calculating every single thing I had ever spent on Emily. It wasn't out of bitterness. It was out of clarity. I needed to know just how deep the betrayal ran. $1,200 per month for daycare when she was little, for 5 years. $72,000. $60,000 for her college tuition. $25,000 for her wedding. $8,000 day gifts, medical bills, private lessons, clothes, vacations. I stopped counting at $300,000. And on top of all that, the villa, my villa, was worth over $950,000 at current market value. She handed that over without blinking. But this wasn't just about money. This was about making them feel the weight of what they'd done. And that meant I had to make my first move strategically. I remembered Troy had a key business deal he was counting on, a multi-unit condo development that needed one final loan approval to move forward. I knew this because, back when they were living in my house, he used to take business calls on speaker in my living room. I took notes back then, mentally. So I called the bank, posed as a concerned party, shared documents anonymously. Documents Troy left lying around the house, showing that he had used part of my home's equity as proof of his financial backing. The bank hadn't even verified the ownership transfer yet. I simply told them, "You might want to double-check who actually owns the property in question." Within 48 hours, his loan approval was frozen. Troy called Emily. Emily texted me, just one line, "Did you do something?" I didn't respond. But I wasn't done yet. That same week, I contacted the utilities company. Since the ownership of the house was still in legal dispute, and I was still technically listed as the primary account holder, I had the right to suspend services. I canceled their electricity and water for property maintenance and dispute resolution reasons. I sat back and waited. Within 2 days, Emily called, furious. "What are you doing? We have no power, no water. Troy's family is here and we're all suffering. You can't do this." I spoke calmly. "You said the house was theirs now, so let them handle it." There was a long silence on the other end before she hung up. But I knew from her voice, they were panicking. The house they thought they stole had become their liability. And for the first time, they realized just how dependent they were on me. And this was just the beginning. A few days later, I received an invitation. Yes, an actual printed invitation to a dinner at my old house. The message read, "Let's clear the air. We're still family. Emily and Troy." Curiosity got the better of me. I put on my best dress, smiled at the mirror, and walked into the house I built with my own hands, now covered in gold-accented furniture, tacky chandeliers, and Troy's mother's favorite wallpaper. The moment I stepped inside, the air shifted. It wasn't reconciliation they wanted. It was control. Troy's mother greeted me with a smirk. "Look who finally realized her place. You know, dear, retirement suits people like you. Quiet places. Away from big houses you can't maintain." I smiled politely. At dinner, Troy lifted his wine glass and said with a confident grin, "We're willing to let you stay in the guest house. No rent, of course. As long as you stay out of our way." I looked at Emily, waiting for her to say something. Anything. But she just sipped her wine and looked away. Troy continued, "This house is part of our family now. We've invested too much to let old emotions get in the way. Maybe it's time to accept that." I nodded slowly. "You're right. I've been emotional. Maybe. I've just been holding on too tightly." Emily looked at me surprised. So, you're okay with the arrangement? I smiled warmly. If it keeps the peace, I'll do whatever you need. They all relaxed after that, laughing, refilling their glasses. They thought I was giving in. But what they didn't know was that I had brought a small recorder in my purse. Every arrogant word, every smug threat, every classist insult, they were all on tape now, including Troy's little confession earlier in the evening. This place was never really hers to begin with. She just got lucky marrying a man who could afford it. That sentence alone would make the court lean in my favor. The trap was set. And they'd walked right into it, smiling. 2 weeks later, I sent out invitations of my own. An elegant cream-colored card with gold trim. Dinner in gratitude, hosted by Margaret Lane. A special evening to thank those who've supported my journey. I invited old friends, a few of Emily's childhood teachers, former neighbors, even the bank officer I'd spoken to anonymously. But most importantly, I invited Troy, Emily, and Troy's entire family. I booked a charming restaurant downtown with a private hall. Warm lighting, jazz music in the background, floral centerpieces. Everything seemed calm, polite, proper. I greeted everyone at the door with a smile. Even Troy's mother, who looked suspicious. During the meal, I stood up and raised a toast. Before we enjoy dessert, I said, I just want to express my deepest gratitude to everyone here, especially to my daughter Emily and her husband Troy, for teaching me some of the most valuable lessons of my life. Troy tilted his head. I continued, I've learned that trust is fragile, that family can disappoint you. But I've also learned the power of truth. Then I clicked a small remote. The lights dimmed, and a projector turned on behind me. A slideshow began to play. First slide. A screenshot of the forged documents. Second slide. The court notice declaring the villa transfer legally void. Third slide. Audio clips, edited for clarity, of Troy saying, "This place was never really hers to begin with," and his mother's voice. "People like you need to know when to let go." Gasps filled the room. Someone from Troy's side whispered, "Did he really say that?" Emily stood up, panicked. "Mom, what is this?" I turned to her calmly. "It's the truth, sweetheart. I thought it was time everyone saw it for themselves." Then came the final slide. An official letter from the Department of Real Estate confirming the investigation into Troy's business misconduct. His face drained of color. Whispers turned into murmurs, and murmurs into outrage. One of Troy's own uncles stood up and said, "You used your mother-in-law's home as fake collateral? Are you insane?" The bank officer left the table mid-meal, clearly shaken. Troy tried to defend himself, stammering something about misunderstandings, but no one was listening anymore. I picked up my clutch, looked at them one last time, and said clearly, "Enjoy the consequences." And with that I walked out, head high, heart light, leaving behind the ruins they built for themselves. The fallout came faster than even I expected. Within a week, Troy's development deal collapsed entirely. The bank pulled their funding, citing fraudulent representation of assets. Word spread quickly. His reputation in the real estate community was in shambles. The villa, still legally mine, was under investigation due to Troy's unauthorized use of it as collateral. That froze any remaining leverage he had. His partners cut ties, his social media presence vanished overnight, and former investors began demanding refunds. Then came the foreclosure notice. Not on my home, of course, but on Troy's parents' property. Apparently, in his desperation to keep up appearances, he'd taken out a second mortgage on their house behind their backs. Emily lost her friends, too. All the women from her charity circles, once quick to praise her perfect home, began to pull away. Nobody wants to be associated with scandal. She reached out to me through email first. A long, dramatic letter filled with lines like, "We made mistakes, but we're still family. You're the only one who can help us get back on our feet. If you truly loved me, you wouldn't let your own daughter suffer like this." I didn't reply. A few days later, she showed up at my coastal home. She looked different. tired, thinner, without the polished elegance she once carried like armor. She stood at my doorstep with a bouquet of wilted flowers and eyes full of tears. "Mom, I was wrong," she said, her voice cracking. "I don't know what I was thinking. Troy ruined everything. I should have listened to you. Please, can we talk?" I looked at her carefully. "You mean now that you've lost the house, the business, and your reputation, you remember I exist?" "Yes." "I didn't know he was doing all that," she said quickly. "I was trying to build a life. I thought we were doing the right thing." I shook my head slowly. "You didn't just stand by. You handed them my life like it meant nothing. You didn't ask questions when they pushed me out. That's not your choice. You're not going to help me." I took a breath and spoke firmly. "No, already did. For 30 years. And with that, I closed the door." Life became beautifully quiet after that. I settled fully into my new coastal home, a cozy cottage with ocean views and birds that sang at sunrise. The walls were painted soft blue, the kitchen always smelled like fresh coffee and lemon, and every corner of the house reflected me. Not compromise, not burden, just peace. I took long morning walks on the beach, where the waves seemed to wash away years of stress with every step. I joined a local book club made up of smart, funny women in their 50s and 60s. Retired teachers, widows, artists. Real people. No backhanded compliments. No schemes behind smiles. There was Linda, a former professor who knew every classic novel by heart but had the driest, most wicked sense of humor. She made me laugh like I hadn't in years. Then there was Grace, who baked pies like a magician and treated me like a sister from the first day. They became my found family, offering warmth and friendship I never had to question. We had weekly dinners where no one talked about real estate or bank loans. Just books, memories, dreams, and silly things that made us feel alive. Financially, I was secure. Selling the villa brought in a sum I never imagined I'd have access to in my lifetime. I invested wisely, thanks to a financial advisor Grace introduced me to. Someone trustworthy, transparent, and kind. I even set up a small scholarship fund in my husband's name at the local high school, helping students from struggling families get a better shot at college. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about freedom. I had shed the weight of people who only saw me as a stepping stone. In their place, I found people who saw me as a person, whole one, and I was finally, gloriously, thriving. Word still finds its way to me now and then. Troy's business never recovered. He tried launching an online property consulting firm, but no one wanted to work with someone whose name was linked to fraud. Last I heard, he was working at a mid-level sales job in a strip mall real estate agency, far from the developer empire he once bragged about. Emily moved in with Troy's parents after losing their rented condo. They sold their cars, closed their social accounts, and became ghosts in the very social circles they once ruled. Every now and then, someone tells me they saw Emily at the local supermarket, looking worn down, avoiding eye contact. She hasn't reached out again. And me? I'm sitting on my porch, wrapped in a warm shawl, sipping tea as the sun sets over the waves. The breeze carries no weight, only peace. Linda is inside baking apple crumble, and Grace is bringing over her dog for our evening walk. There's laughter waiting for me. I lost a daughter, yes, but I found a life. Sometimes justice isn't loud. It's steady, graceful, and sure. It's living well while those who wronged you face the echoes of their choices. If you found justice here, like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. And for another story of sweet revenge, click here. Real family doesn't have a price tag. It's earned.